Good morning, folks. It's kind of chilly, but I'm pretending it's spring. I'm all dressed in spring colors, and we're back out at the channel bar. And I had someone ask me to do a video on uh, climbing roses. And I'm here at a Lady Banks rose. And I want you to remember go back with me, when we had that horrible winter storm Uri. Well, to our devastation, every one of the yellow banks roses died to the ground. This arbor had been covered in yellow banks for years. And in reality, it was a blessing. It's hard to say that, but we cut them all down because they were gone. And we had the opportunity to repaint the arbor and to put the shade cloth on. And then all of a sudden, I want you to look down here from the bottom of the rose yellow banks where we cut them, they started growing again. It wasn't the first year. I can remember maybe here 2 or 3 even looking out from the tent and went, oh my gosh, we have yellow banks roses. And I was so excited. So then we also planted some new yellow banks where they didn't come back. And those didn't do near as well as things that had this vigorous 20-year-old root system. So the number one thing I want to tell you today about pruning a climbing rose, one, I don't love them. I mistakenly thought if they had little suffers on their limbs and canes and that they just clung to whatever you wanted them to. That's not true. You always have to have a support for them, even if you're growing them on brick uh, or on these arbor, these metal, they have to be supported. A lot of times we'll wean them into this support. That's kind of the easiest way. But the most important thing I can leave you with today are the old wood versus new wood. And I know we have talked about this numbers of times. You do not want to prune a yellow banks rose now. It blooms on old wood. So if you did to it what we did to the regular roses, you would lose all your blooms this year. So we'll wait to prune these yellow banks roses right after they have finished blooming. That's the most important time to do it. That's when you can get in here and cut out some of these big old stalks. I think now we could probably cut these down to the ground. We were just so excited about it that we haven't done a whole lot. And as if these were coming down, it should be the walkway, we would still even have to cut those because we don't want anybody smacked in the eye with the yellow banks roses, no matter how pretty that is. But so right now, when you're thinking about pruning your climbing roses, or they call them ramblers, and gosh, that's the right word because they ramble everywhere, but they are beautiful. Look to see if that particular rose blooms on old wood or new wood. Yellow banks, white banks, any of that group of roses are going to bloom on old wood. Don't touch them now. Wait till they bloom, then immediately prune them because they'll start putting out their buds for next year. Now, some of these are not yellow banks roses. I had wanted re-bloomers in here. We didn't mark them. So I'm going to wait to see what they bloom before I start pruning them. And what we'll do is just prune for this year, since I'm kind of behind, prune the wayward branches. So we'll be back on more about pruning. You'll see the yellow banks roses, and they are so exciting. Thanks for watching.